Should I invest all at once or over time? This question usually comes up when someone is holding a significant amount of cash and can't decide what to do with it. You want to invest, but you don't want to get the timing wrong. I call this cash paralysis. You understand that money should be working for you, but every time you consider investing feels like the wrong time. Markets rise and you worry that they're about to fall, or markets fall and you worry that they're going to fall even more. So the cash accumulates. And just like a dose of rocuronium, the more there is, the harder it is to move. So what are your options? The two classic approaches are lump sum investing, pulling the trigger and investing it all at once, or dollar cost averaging, investing the money in chunks over time. I'm going to tell you the pros and cons to each of those, and then I'll show you a third option that I call the lump sum ladder that might be the best one for many people. When you look at decades of market data, lump sum investing comes out ahead most of the time, about 70%. The explanation for that is pretty simple. Markets tend to rise over time more often than they fall, and so getting the money invested earlier gives it more time to compound. So if we had two investors, each with $100,000 to invest in, say, a 100% equity ETF, about 70% of the time, the one who invested the entire $100,000 up front would do better than the one who invested, say, $25,000 every 3 months over a year. Mathematically, lump sum investing wins. Unfortunately, it's just too hard for many people, given the very real possibility that next week or next month, a market correction could wipe out part of your portfolio. Dollar cost averaging, on the other hand, is often seen as the safer, more palatable option. You spread the investment out and hope that smaller steps feel more manageable. But the reality is that dollar cost averaging requires you to make multiple difficult decisions on the path to getting fully invested, rather than just one big one. Each scheduled investment has to go into the market regardless of what the news looks like. So people often start with enthusiasm because, after all, they're still sitting on most of their safe cash, but they can fall off the wagon for any number of personal or market or economic reasons. The approach only works if you follow it consistently from start to finish. So if you choose to dollar cost average into the market, it is really essential to make a plan and stick to it. But there's a way to respect both the mathematical evidence and the emotional side of investing. And I call it the lump sum ladder. It works like this. Step number 1 is you invest the full amount right away, but you do it in a portfolio that you're not going to be tempted to sell if the market corrects. So that might mean a more conservative mix at the start, such as a 60-40 portfolio or even 40% stocks and 60% bonds. More bonds means that severe drops in value are much less likely. And then you ladder into your long-term target allocation. If your target asset allocation is 100% equities, for example, every 3 months, you could flip a quarter of your 60-40 ETF into a 100% equities ETF. Along the way, any new funds you have to invest are immediately invested at your target asset allocation, avoiding any future cash paralysis. The key piece of evidence that supports this approach is that investing a lump sum in a conservative 60-40 portfolio has actually beaten dollar cost averaging into a 100% equity portfolio in most historical periods. That result surprises almost everyone, but it really highlights the power of time in the market. It turns out simply getting your money invested is actually more important than asset allocation. The lump sum ladder structure does a few important things. It gets your money working immediately. It removes the pressure of choosing a perfect entry point. It avoids the emotional fatigue of traditional dollar cost averaging and all those decisions. It gives you a clear plan to follow as you take measured steps toward your long-term allocation. And most importantly, it prevents the two biggest mistakes that I see all the time: staying in cash for far too long, or reacting emotionally when markets move in ways that you didn't expect them to. Don't expect investing to feel comfortable. It just doesn't. There's no perfect time to invest. The goal is to build a process that you can follow without second guessing yourself and let the market work its magic. Lump sum investing straight into your target asset allocation does have the strongest evidence behind it. Dollar cost averaging is also reasonable, and it can feel really comforting at first, but just be aware that it can be surprisingly hard to implement over time. The lump sum ladder strikes a balance between the two, blending the strengths of both. Cash paralysis is one of the most costly afflictions of the DIY investor, and the longer money sits on the sidelines, the harder it becomes to move it. Whether you choose a lump sum, traditional dollar cost averaging, or the lump sum ladder, the most important part is committing to your plan and following it through. Because no matter what option you choose, it will be far better than not choosing.